Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Josie's Point of View, where we focus on human interest stories from the Carolinas and beyond. Today it's Wednesday and it's August 11, 2021. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're new to my channel, I want to extend to you a special welcome. Thank you so very much for stopping by. And if you're a returning viewer, by all means, thank you so much for coming back. My channel is growing. It's growing slowly, but it's getting there. And I want you to know I appreciate you, and I hope I am producing content that you find interesting. You know, the tide here on YouTube changes so frequently, and every little bit counts. So thank you so much for being here. Please feel free to like and to share this video, and of course, please take a few minutes to subscribe. Thank you. And our story today comes from Newland in North Carolina. I had to take a few minutes and go back and figure out where Newland was. I'd never heard of it before, but nonetheless, our story today comes from Newland in North Carolina. Take a look at the headline. And it reads, North Carolina woman entombed in her home and caretaker arrested. I'll provide you with a summary here, and as always, I'll place links to a few of the full articles in the description box. Now, this is a case from last month, July 2021. We're talking about 70-year-old Mrs. Lynn Keene, a resident of Linden Falls here in North Carolina. Well, on July the 30th, Mrs. Keene's family, they had filed an official missing persons report with the Avery Sheriff's Office. In the report, family members indicated they had not seen or heard from Mrs. Keene since around the middle of June. So she had been missing for a month and a half, almost 2 months. When detectives went to the house to investigate her whereabouts, they probably went to do a welfare check. Kind of makes you wonder, where was the family? Why weren't they at the house checking? But nonetheless, detectives went to the house to investigate her whereabouts. Detectives noticed that the car was missing. Now her family had hired someone, a female, to be her living caretaker. That person also seemed to be missing. They could not locate her. The vehicle was found several counties away, and investigators noticed there were 2 empty bags of concrete in the trunk. So that's when the case changed from a missing person to possibly something more serious. Detectives then went back to Mrs. Keene's home. This time they went with a search warrant. Now, the Avery County Police, as well as representatives from the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation, they entered the home and they searched the entire premises. When they entered the basement, according to reports, detectives stated there was a large amount of flies, and they knew this to mean that it was an indication that someone was deceased. And as they continued their search, they noticed a mass of hardened concrete. I'm sure at that point they pretty much knew what they would find. When investigators broke through the concrete, they discovered human remains. An autopsy and dental records confirmed the remains were those of the missing homeowner, Mrs. Lynn Keene. Law enforcement officers said Mrs. Keene had blunt force trauma to her head and that she had been strangled with a belt. Now the question was, where in the world was her living caretaker, because she was still missing in action? But officers were able to find a surveillance video from a store in Marion, North Carolina, which is about 20 miles from where Mrs. Keene lived. The surveillance video shows the caretaker driving Mrs. Keene's car and using one of the credit cards. So they knew very well that she was involved, so a warrant was issued for her arrest. The caretaker was identified as 53-year-old Elizabeth Catherine Carserino of Goose Creek, South Carolina, and she was wanted for murder, larceny of a vehicle, and identity theft. But police first had to find her, and would you believe, she was located at a hospital where she was admitted and being treated for a drug-related problem. So after she allegedly robbed and killed a woman who she was being paid to care for, she took flight and she booked herself into a hospital for treatment. This was definitely a bit of a strategic move, or maybe she thought she would be able to hide within a hospital. It's a bit pathetic anyway, but it sure did not prevent the police from doing their job and arresting her butt. So the police was a bit puzzled. They could not explain how she managed to get from the site of the abandoned vehicle to the hospital. So therein lies the theory that a second person may have been involved. According to reports, just the job of carrying the bags of cement down into the basement may have required help from someone else. Each bag weighs 80 pounds, and considering the physical status of the alleged murderer, the bags may have been a bit much for her to carry by herself. So police are thinking there may have been at least one other person involved, even though that has not been substantiated. So Elizabeth Catherine Casanero remains in jail with a $1.6 million bond, and a first court appearance is scheduled to be sometime of this week. Now, you may not agree with me, but here's my perspective on this. It's apparent that Mrs. Keene most likely had some type of medical or emotional problem that required her to have a caretaker. And not just a caretaker, but a full-time caretaker. That's the key here. As far as I'm concerned, age 70 is still very young. People 70, they're about doing things, and she was still driving a car, but there must have been a problem that required her to have someone by her side on a full-time basis. I'm just wondering what kind of screening was done and who selected this particular individual to be a caregiver. I sincerely hope she was not a member of the family. God, I hope she was not a member of the family. But I want to specifically address my comments to the family members. You're not coming off looking very good in this situation. Why would you wait for almost 2 months before you contact someone to go check on Mrs. Keene? How often were you really checking on her anyway? And why do you think it was appropriate to wait almost 2 months to call and ask for somebody to do a welfare check? The police does welfare checks all the time. All someone had to do was call and ask, and it would have been done. This tells me you were not receiving any type of updates or progress report on her. How do you even know that her daily needs were being met? I don't think you knew. Sounds a bit neglectful to me, and feel free to agree or disagree, but that's my opinion. Someone should have been checking, someone should have been asking questions, and someone should have sounded the alarm several weeks ago. Well, that's all I have for you right now. Feel free to leave me a comment and let me know what you think about this video. And I know I get emotional at times. I can't help it. That's who I am. And feel free to like and to share the video. And by all means, if you haven't done so already, I want to invite you to subscribe to my channel by clicking on that red subscribe button on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. And if you click on the notification bell, you'll be the first to know whenever a new video is uploaded. I thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.